There it is again, that midday monster creeping up on you. Your brain slowing down to a crawl, all motivation sapped from your body as you stare blankly at the screen. Do you have your second cup of coffee? Maybe today calls for a whole energy drink. Maybe you should take a nap. Maybe you should rip your vape. Or perhaps you should reach for a prescription stimulant that you totally have a prescription for. Whatever your choice, you know deep down it's just a band-aid. You're buying yourself mere extra minutes of productivity before the fatigue catches up and punches you in the face. And it's not that you're lazy, it's that you're physically and mentally drained, and you are tired of being tired. And lately, it's getting worse. You're waking up already exhausted, your occasional flirtation with stimulants has escalated into a full-on dependence, and you're painfully aware that you're not operating anywhere near your true potential. Because you know that there's a version of you that wakes up energized, never needing to hit snooze, that has mental and physical energy lasting well beyond 2 p.m. and doesn't need black sludge from a bean just to be a functional human. Yet that version of you feels miles away. So in this video, I will explain why you're always tired and how to actually fix it so you can go beyond just surviving the day to living your life. This video is important to me because for years of my life, I was stuck in that exact state. I'd start my days hitting snooze once, maybe twice, and then by around noon to 1 p.m., I was fading out of existence. I vividly remember sitting on my couch trying to meditate, jolting myself awake because I was passing out within a couple minutes of sitting still. So around that time, I would be cracking open an energy drink or watching that precious pot drip. And the caffeine would buy me maybe a couple hours, but by 3 p.m., I was completely fried. No focus, no motivation, just pushing out some low quality work that really didn't move the needle much until the day was over. I began falling behind on the goals I had set. I was struggling socially in the evenings with my girlfriend and my friends because I was unapproachable and irritable. And it wasn't until I stepped back and observed all of the habits I was doing that I began connecting some dots. And I noticed that one of the main culprits behind this fatigue wasn't lack of motivation, wasn't my work ethic, it was my lunch. Because I was heavily into bodybuilding at the time, I would wake up, eat something, go train, and then immediately go and have a massive lunch. I'm talking giant bowls of rice, giant sub sandwiches, and burritos the size of an infant. And all of them had one thing in common. It was a massive amount of carbs. But after deciding it was time to prioritize my brain over the bulk, I tried something I've never done before. I completely cut out lunches, and it changed everything. So when you eat a carb-heavy meal, your blood sugar rapidly spikes up. So to handle this spike, your body pumps out insulin, which rapidly brings your blood sugar back down. But what happens is typically it overshoots and causes your energy levels to crash. And this is what causes the food coma we've all been through, where you just crash into the ground after having some kind of big meal. And the craziest thing is, nobody thinks anything of it. They think it's just part of life. Like, oh yeah, I ate all this food and now I'm tired. That's just how life is supposed to be as a human. When that's not the case at all. We are supposed to have steady levels of energy throughout the entire day. It's just that we've been psyoped by big food companies to believe that we should have the 3 square meals and a bunch of little snacks and eat every 3 hours. And the truth is, biologically, carbs aren't even a required food to consume. We need protein because it has amino acids. We need fats because it has fatty acids. There are no carby acids. We're just wired to become so easily addicted to them. And beyond the insulin crash, glucose in high amounts is actually shown to lower the amounts of orexin in your brain, which is a neuropeptide that promotes wakefulness. And this is not a video where I'm gonna be like, oh, you have to be carnivore, you have to be keto. I am neither of those things. I still eat carbs. But if you're someone who wants to take control over their energy levels, their focus levels, their cognitive ability, you have to become controlled over your carb intake. And that may mean experimenting with keto. That may mean experimenting with intermittent fasting throughout the day, or just having smaller amounts of carbs with every meal you have, or even experimenting with different forms of carbs. For example, I've noticed I can eat fruit and I typically don't crash. There's something that hits different about Mother Nature's sugar compared to processed sugar. If you're like me, you may find that it's just best to not touch a carb until later in the day, but if you're some kind of crazy endurance athlete, yeah, sometimes you're gonna need some carbs before you go on your crazy run. But don't get me wrong, I love to occasionally throw down a giant bowl of pasta, a giant bowl of fried rice, maybe even some ice cream here and there. Don't tell anyone. So if you are going to have carbs anytime earlier in the day, I highly recommend taking a glucose disposal agent, namely berberine. Berberine helps stabilize your blood sugar levels by improving how your cells absorb glucose. So instead of letting the sugar spike and crash after meals, berberine makes your body better at managing energy, which prevents fatigue and maintains steady energy throughout your day, ideally. And this isn't some woo-woo magic pill. Studies have shown that berberine actually is comparable to literal diabetic medications such as metformin. But you have to be careful with this, because when your body is in a low-carb state, your kidneys begin to release a lot of your sodium. Sodium is kind of a hot topic because in the 60s and 70s, health experts pushed the narrative that sodium was the cause for all these heart diseases and hypertension. And this highly benefited major food companies because it shifted attention away to what we're now seeing to be the true culprit of this, which is sugar, processed carbs, and, depending on who you believe, seed oils. And what these companies would do would package their shitty foods as low sodium. Therefore, people are like, oh, this must be healthy for me to eat. But in reality, it was just a ploy to trick consumers and, of course, make more money. When the truth is, electrolytes like sodium, potassium, magnesium, calcium are essential for your body to maintain its electrical activity. Your body is literally an electrical system. Every thought you have, every heartbeat, every muscle contraction is triggered by an electrical impulse. And these minerals are what allows these electrical currents to flow throughout your body and let everything run properly. In fact, sodium and potassium are directly required for your nerves to signal to each other. And when those electrolyte levels are low, it will directly impair your ability to think and focus. This is the same reason why the majority of people who get chronic headaches and migraines are actually just electrolyte deficient. So if you don't have proper electrolytes, even basic everyday tasks are going to feel exhausting. And this isn't as simple as the common advice you've probably heard of, oh, just wake up in the morning and have a glass of water, because most waters, especially if you're getting it from like cheap, purified, bottled water, a gallon of distilled water, or even the sink, it won't have the proper balance and amounts of electrolytes to get the benefit. In fact, it may just flush more electrolytes out of your body through your pee-pee. So if there's one thing you consume that you need to have high standards for, it's the water. Get spring water, artesian water, anything that's more naturally occurring, that has naturally occurring minerals in it, or you can also, which I also do, opt into buying things like trace mineral drops to drop into your water, add salt to your water in the morning, cheapest hack you could possibly do. And yes, you can buy those flavored electrolyte pouches that every podcaster is trying to sell you. But speaking of hydration, let's talk about something that actually sabotages that, and that's stimulants. So I was accidentally exposed to high levels of stimulants at a very young age. I got into the gym and working out in high school. I would go to the supplement store with my friends and just say, hey, can we have a really good pre-workout? So they would just give us the most literal crack in powder form pre-workout they had. And often it was like 400 caffeine and all these other exotic stimulants that make my pee-pee shrivel up. And while I did realize that it was a little too much and cut back on my caffeine usage over time and actually shifted from using caffeine as a pre-workout to a pre-work ritual, the reliance was still there. And the process itself of going and getting a yummy energy drink or making a nice pot of coffee became this dopamine farming ritual I had. And this is common. Caffeine and nicotine are so normalized that we often forget that they are literally mind-altering drugs. They aren't just this little thing to put a pep in your step. They are chemical agents that directly alter your brain's reward system, stress response, and emotional state. And while I have taken prolonged periods of no stimulants, I'm not one of those people that say, oh, don't touch them at all, because I completely understand the utility of them. But if you have never gone a significant amount of time without your caffeine or your nicotine or both, you owe it to yourself to take a break, to prove to yourself you can. And this goes beyond health. It actually will let you figure out what your baseline mood, your baseline energy levels, your baseline productivity actually is. And to be honest with you, I think there's something extremely pathetic about relying on an external source to make you able to talk to other people, to make you be in a good mood, to make you do the fucking work you should be doing regardless. And if you're like me, you'll be shocked to think, oh, I don't actually need this for these tasks. Oh, yeah, it benefits me when I do this thing, but honestly, I don't need it most of the days out of the week. And if you were especially abusing these things, it'll let your body finally get a fucking chance to regulate your circadian rhythm and your sleep. You may have the best sleep in your life. But of course, people metabolize these things differently. For some people, they take caffeine at noon and they can't fall asleep. For others, they take it right before and they're actually fine. I keep my caffeine below 200 milligrams, and personally, I think that should be the standard for the majority of people. I don't know why the daily recommended amount is 400. I think that's far too much. And a good rule of thumb I like is just not having the same stimulant 2 days in a row. For example, maybe one day I could have coffee, the next day maybe I'll have a nicotine pouch or a cigar with the boys, and then the next day I might do nothing. And this ensures you don't build a tolerance so you can actually get the desired outcome of these stimulants, because let's be real, stimulants are awesome sometimes. And of course, for health purposes, it ensures that you're not placing constant stress on your adrenal glands. But speaking of that, I actually have a supplement stack that I've implemented that has not only dramatically improved my cognitive energy, but also when I do take stimulants, ensuring it's a more smooth, controlled stimulation. So 2 things specifically I like taking with caffeine is L-theanine, because it smooths it out, creates a more calm, sustained focus, and ashwagandha, because caffeine spikes the fuck out of your cortisol, which is your stress hormone, and ashwagandha kind of mitigates that spike and helps balance it out. Next, you should just be taking this every day, but vitamin B5 in the form of pantothenic acid. It's a precursor to coenzyme A, which is essential for energy metabolism, and it helps with adrenal function. And speaking of B vitamins, I also recommend B1 thiamine, because I've noticed a pretty noticeable effect in terms of mental clarity, especially if you're deficient in it right now. And finally, you could try acetyl L-carnitine. It's a compound that already naturally occurs in our brain, but taking extra amounts of it can help transport fatty acids into your mitochondria, which is essential for energy and brain function. And it's a precursor to acetylcholine, which directly impacts the brain's energy metabolism. But I'm not saying go spend hundreds of dollars on supplements. If anything, just ensure you're getting the core electrolytes, vitamin D, and B vitamins, and you're pretty well off. And lastly, you can always experiment with different forms of caffeine. You don't have to drink coffee or lab-made caffeine from an energy drink. You can try something like yerba mate or matcha. I don't care what anyone says, matcha's not gay, that stuff slaps. But what if I told you that sometimes that feeling of tiredness may have nothing to do with physical exhaustion? It might actually be your brain desperately craving dopamine. I know you've heard dopamine this, dopamine that, but hear me out, because understanding this genuinely changed my life. I see this a lot. People will say things like, I'm tired, I need to rest, but they're not nodding off about to pass out, nor do they go and take a nap. They go sit on the couch and scroll, or put on a TV show, or put on the game, because what they thought was exhaustion was actually their brain craving an artificially high dopamine release, because their average everyday life isn't releasing enough dopamine. Dopamine isn't just a pleasure chemical, it is the molecule of motivation. Not just crazy high energy motivation, but the motivation that gets you to get up, walk, eat food. And it's the thing that's going to cause you to feel driven and excited to do things compared to, ugh. So your brain has a baseline level of dopamine, and it is literally required for you to do anything and survive. But when you flood your brain with high dopamine activities like video games, social media, pornography, you have a massive spike, and then it drops down below baseline before slowly getting back to around baseline. But over time, what happens is the baseline gets lower and lower and lower until you begin showing the very symptoms that are associated with being tired or sleep deprived. You have no drive, you have no energy for life. And what happens is regular tasks begin to feel dull, meaningless, and this is why people think they're tired when in reality, they ain't got that drive in them, they ain't got that dog in them. And look, there's an obvious solution. You just have to reduce these artificially high dopamine releases, especially early in the day, so you don't have this giant dip and trough later. And if that's something that you find difficult, then maybe you shouldn't be watching videos about how to not be tired. You need to watch videos on how to be more disciplined. Because the fewer spikes you have, the more steady your baseline is, the more it can get higher and higher and higher. And the more energized and motivated you'll feel naturally, by default. But of course, sometimes you do need rest, and it is extremely valuable to reset your energy levels. And there are 2 scientifically proven methods I highly recommend to reset your central nervous system. First is non-sleep deep rest. It's exactly what it sounds like. You're entering a deep state of rest and you're not sleeping. You can search NSDR or Yoga Nidra on YouTube. If you search NSDR, you can get the Andrew Huberman one. It's like 20 minutes. It's pretty good. Or there's this one girl that does Yoga Nidra videos. There's like a million of them. It's the only thing that comes up really. She's pretty good as well. Or you can do my personal favorite that beyond giving yourself a nice little reset, dramatically increases your mindfulness and your metacognition, which is your overall levels of awareness, of focus, of presence, which is going to dramatically increase not only your ability to focus, but your overall mental health, and that is meditation. And if you want to do it in the specific way to increase your levels of metacognition, check out my free 5-day meditation series in the description below. But I know what you might be thinking, when is he actually going to talk about sleep? Well, the thing is, while I'm about to mention one thing that is a big deal that a lot of people are doing that is sleep related, the truth is about sleep is that as long as you really understand your 3 rhythms, you can get pretty solid sleep. And that is your stress rhythm, your light rhythm, and your temperature rhythm. And the good news is almost all of these follow the same rhythm. So in terms of light, in terms of your stress level, and in terms of your body's temperature, as the morning comes, they all start to increase. And then throughout the day, they start to take a dip and take a dip and take a dip. And once you're asleep, they plummet until it's time to wake up again and they start going up. So to really optimize your rhythms, you just have to do obvious things. Get exposed to bright light in the morning, make your room nice and cold when you go to sleep, and by limiting your exposure to blue light, especially in the evenings. Blue light is proven to increase anxiety, increase dopamine and impulsivity, and of course, dramatically disrupt your circadian rhythm and your sleep quality, which comes with a myriad of horrible cognitive issues. On your phone, put on night shift. You can shift the screen to a hue of red. On your screens, turn on blue light filters. And if you want to get serious about it, cop some high quality blue blocking glasses. This is actually a prototype for my own brand of blue blocking glasses because most of them don't block enough blue light to actually get good benefits. So here's the Instagram if you're interested, or just subscribe. I'll let you know when they drop. But when it is time to wake up, you have to avoid this one mistake that everyone, including myself, is guilty of doing, and that is hitting snooze. Imagine you're about to get brain surgery and you get to choose between 2 surgeons. The first one looks awake, alert, his eyes are sharpened with focus, but the other one looks sleepy, sedated, as if he took a sleeping pill or smoked some devil lettuce. Logically, you would pick the first doctor because he seems alert, he seems fully there to make the decisions required to operate on your brain. Yet every morning you are entrusting the sedated version of yourself to make the right decisions, to wake up, don't hit snooze, take a cold shower, work out, whatever else you need to do early in the morning. But the truth is, there is not just awake and asleep. Wakefulness is on a spectrum, and if you're like the majority of people, including myself, you don't spring out of bed wide awake, ready to tackle the day. Therefore, you cannot trust that morning sleepy version of yourself to make those decisions. You have to decide the night before. And it's that same reason why people snooze in the morning, because they think, oh, I'm still tired, I must have not slept well, I better sleep another 30 minutes, hour, 90 minutes, when in reality, they never gave themselves the chance to actually wake up. And when you hit snooze, you're not actually giving yourself more rest, you're creating these fragmented, short periods of sleep that aren't actually restorative because you're just repeating the sleep cycle, but it's never long enough to get you into a deep, full cycle of sleep that actually restores you. And as a result, you actually wake up groggier and more tired than you would have if you would have just gotten up when you woke up. This is called sleep inertia. And research was just published 2 years ago that showed that fragmented sleep is associated with increased daytime fatigue, impaired cognitive function, and a reduced mood overall. But here's the thing, even when I knew snoozing wasn't good for me, I still did it. Why was that? So a little over a year ago, I was in a call with one of my coaching students, and he says, Kenny, I am struggling to wake up early. I was wondering, what is your morning routine? Do you have any hacks for me to do? And I almost humored him and started giving morning routines and sleep quality hacks and all that. But I paused because something told me that's not what he needed. So I asked him, why do you want to wake up early? And he immediately responded, well, to be productive, of course. But then I asked, why do you want to be productive? And he froze. He genuinely couldn't give me a reason why he wanted to wake up early and be productive. So I told him, you don't need any advice. It doesn't matter what your morning routine is because you don't have a strong enough why to actually get yourself to wake up early. Therefore, you won't. We don't wake up early, work out, take cold showers, meditate, journal, read books for the sake of doing it, for the sake of productivity. We do it because it's a vessel to get us to an outcome that we desire. But if you don't have a crystal clear desire, a crystal clear why to do that thing, you're not going to do it because you don't actually want to do it. You want to do it. Therefore, when you are setting a sleep time, when you are setting a wake up time, you need to consciously rationalize to yourself the intention behind it. Why are you actually doing this? What kind of person is it helping you become? And what outcome is being that person going to get you? And if you're someone that struggles with things like discipline, focus, or confidence, I highly recommend checking out my full self-development masterclass, Mental Mastery, in the description. But here's the thing, you can get all of your energy levels back and still not get the outcome you desire, still not get the levels of productivity, of focus, of work output that you want with that energy if you don't know how to truly focus. So if you click the video on the screen, I will tell you the 10 hacks that I did that 10x'd my amounts of focus, therefore productivity, therefore outputs, therefore results in my life and progression towards my goals. It's on the screen if you want to click it. Thank you for watching. Hope you learned something. Love you. Bye bye.